A lot of injuries. That means a lot of waiver wire replacement options. In fact, if you're in a super flex league or a 2QB league, this is the week for you. Potentially, we do have some injuries there that you could take advantage of. Welcome to the show, everybody. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. We are into week 7 already. I'm hesitant to give an opinion on the Monday Night Football game because last time I did that, it was met with some skepticism. I thought the Raiders-Packers game was good. Last night was good, though, right? It was dramatic. It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. Okay.
It was good, but it was disappointing because I was expecting a better offensive showing, and the way that the two teams scored early, I thought, okay, here we go. It was gonna.
Yep.
It seemed like it set up for a lot of fireworks, and we got, I think, a little bit disappointed by that.
At the same time, it was basically the crown jewel of week 6 because that's just what week 6 was about. It was, let's hope we never have another week like week 6. Excuse me. All right. So yeah, we'll talk about all those injuries and let's get into it right now. Jamie, who are the top 3 priorities for you?
It's funny because I think you should be looking at both San Francisco running backs first. And based on what Kyle Shanahan said yesterday, it seems like Mitchell's still going to be the guy over Jordan Mason, but you never know. And if it's Mason and not Mitchell, you want to have a piece of that. But I think those two guys, and I'll put Zach Evans third, just with the situation going on in Los Angeles with the Rams. Not only do you get the chance to use Zach Evans, and you can make a case he might be first because at least you're getting somebody because McCaffrey can still play. But with Kyren Williams out for this Steelers game, hopefully that's it based on the reporting. Ronnie Rivers is now out for 3 to 4 weeks or 4 to 5 weeks. I forget exactly what it is, but a lengthy period of time. At least you're getting a handcuff there that might have some value at some point down the road too. But those 3 would be the first 3 that I'd be looking at.
So 2 San Francisco running backs and a Rams running back. Dave, how about you? And by the way, we should say, I mean, you've got a potential, fool you for San Francisco, for Craig Reynolds in Detroit, because Jahmyr Gibbs might play. You do have that possibility. We don't know how long these running backs are going to be out for. But yeah, as Jamie mentioned, there seems to be more clarity with the Rams situation where you're not going to have Kyren or Rivers this week.
And just before Dave jumps in, with the San Francisco situation, the thing that makes it even worse is they play Monday. So if we don't get any update on McCaffrey today or tomorrow, and he shows up at practice on Thursday, you got to be careful with your FAB. So that's the thing that's tricky with this. Like, you may say, okay, I'm getting San Francisco running back against Minnesota. Love it. Oh no. So
maybe you're not getting the San Francisco running back against.
Well, you're getting a San Francisco running back. You're not getting
this might not be the one you want.
Right.
Which is why I think if you've got McCaffrey and you didn't back him up, you're the one that can kind of freewheel spend your FAB and use that waiver priority more so than other managers in your league to go after these guys. And I would follow Kyle Shanahan here. The track record has been that he's leaned on Mitchell before. He knows what he's got in Mitchell. Mitchell isn't having the better year compared to Mason, but the reason why he didn't get in ahead of Mason last week, according to Shanahan, was because he barely practiced last week and they just got Mason rolling. Mason has had 3 carries inside the 10 his entire career. His first touchdown inside the 10 happened last week. Mitchell's got 18 carries inside the 10. I just think they trust him more. So I'd prioritize him, but it's the same 3 running backs. It's Mitchell, Mason, and Evans.
Okay. So what about the Minnesota matchup? Because they have been a very good run defense. Does it matter to you?
I mean, it wouldn't matter if it was McCaffrey. And I think you have to treat this as, McCaffrey light. Mitchell, you've seen, that's the nice thing about it, and it's frustrating that he's gotten banged up at the wrong time. And I know a lot of people dropped him. We've said it on the show, and I know what I've written, that he's been in the shallow leagues section of the waiver wire column for the better part of, the season. He was drafted in about 80% of leagues. He's kind of hovered in that range, and a lot of people were dropping him. And I know for me, I dropped him in a couple of leagues too. I just couldn't manage my roster with keeping the lottery ticket that he is when he wasn't playing. The thing about it is, and Dave's right, Mitchell's been the guy for Shanahan, but also in what he said yesterday, not only was Mason playing ahead of Mitchell because he only practiced on Thursday ahead of the week, was that they may use a committee, and that would be really, really detrimental to what we're hoping to see, if there is no McCaffrey, because it could be they're splitting series. It could be, Mason's the goal line guy. It could be Mitchell's the goal line guy. It could be one's the passing downs guy, so I wish that we could say with certainty you're getting a potential superstar here for at least a 1 week situation. Clearly the best case scenario is McCaffrey doesn't miss any time and he plays, so we're still waiting to find out what the MRI results are.
Okay. So you could also, Dave, you didn't give your top 3, Dave. So why don't you go ahead and give your top 3?
I did. It's the same top 3.
Same thing. I'm sorry. Yeah. You could also pivot away from the running backs and maybe think about Josh Downs. Yeah.
If Rashee Rice is out there, I would speculate on him long term. If you need somebody that's going to get you 5 catches, then is it Josh Downs or is it Curtis Samuel? Those 2 guys are there for me at wide receiver.
Yeah, to me, I'd go with Downs over Samuel because we've seen this story from Samuel before. Remember how good he was at the beginning of last year, and it's not like he still has some serious competition there. But I don't love the upcoming schedule for Downs. I was going to bring this up. Josh Downs, he's facing Cleveland this week. They're first against wide receivers. Then he faces New Orleans. They're 13th, but we know they've dealt with some suspension, some injury in their secondary. They're healthy now. Carolina, New England. Actually, 3 of the next 4 opponents that Josh Downs faces are currently 1, 2, and 3 in yards allowed to slot receivers. Fewest yards allowed. They're 3 best. The Saints in week 8 are actually bad. They're giving up the 2nd most yards to slot receivers. It's kind of early for that stat. I don't know how much it actually matters, but you do have Gardner Minshew most likely for the rest of the season. It's been a good connection between him and Josh Downs. So we are going to talk a lot about the running backs because that is relevant, but we do have to understand that we might not be getting great production from these running backs. So, it might make more sense for you to go to look at other positions. And then, of course, we have the byes this week: Carolina, Dallas, Houston, Cincinnati, Tennessee, and the Jets are all on bye. That's probably a bigger deal. It's definitely a bigger deal for you at running back than it is at quarterback. So that's also, and maybe wide receiver too. That's also going to influence who you prioritize on waivers. I understand a lot of people are just simply going to need a running back, and we'll get into that. If you miss, it's unbelievable. I just can't find time to watch the baseball playoffs. And it seems like we had some really good games yesterday. So if you miss it, why don't you turn on CBS Sports HQ when you wake up and watch Morning Buzz? Some of the action while you were sleeping, all the action, whatever you missed, it's covered on Morning Buzz. Your sports day starts here. Highlights from all the top games and leagues. Catch up on storylines and social buzz. You can jump in, you can jump out. Morning Buzz runs all morning starting at 9 a.m. and get it all for free on the CBS Sports app. All right, news and notes. So let's cover it all here. Justin Fields is doubtful for this week. Tyson Bagent will probably get the start for the Bears. Ryan Tannehill has a high ankle sprain. They're on a bye. Then they have Atlanta in week 8. Jimmy Garoppolo's got this back injury. His status unclear for their game at Chicago. Baker Mayfield, bruised thumb. Are you guys expecting Baker Mayfield to play?
We are.
All right. He's against Atlanta this week. Trevor Lawrence, I hate this one. He has a knee injury, and he's facing the Saints on Thursday. As of right now, it's not even clear he's going to play, but where are you ranking Trevor Lawrence?
Either 11 or 12.
Right. There aren't a lot of quarterbacks to love this week. So he's in that mix of low-end QB1, but I don't know how effective he'll be if he's got some limitations because of the knee, and the matchup isn't easy.
And as mentioned, Anthony Richardson likely out for the season with that shoulder injury. The running back news, you got Kyren Williams and Ronnie Rivers likely out this week, so Zach Evans could start for the Rams, and they are facing Pittsburgh, which on paper, they've been a bad run defense. You dig into it a little bit more, McCaffrey, Chubb, those guys were great against them. You had that 69-yard run by Jerome Ford. Other than that, they haven't been that bad. But that's the big injury news at running back. Plus,
given the week, Zach Evans is like top 5.
Look, I started Amari DiMercado in one league, so if I can get Zach Evans, and I actually don't even bother putting in a claim for Zach Evans in the IDP league because I have the number one priority. So I think I am going to make it Zach Evans.
Congrats.
Yeah. I would say that I'm gonna prioritize him over the 49ers running backs.
Have you won since our trade?
No. Of course not. No, that team stinks. Let's see. The Rams also are gonna possibly be without one of their starting cornerbacks, Darian Kendrick. Trent Williams, we can talk about Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel. They're day-to-day. Their status still unclear, but they're not long-term injuries. Trent Williams, left tackle. Deebo Samuel, obviously, you know who he is. They're at Minnesota. And David Montgomery will be out for a little while. We don't know that he's going to be out this week. I don't know how long it's going to be. Jahmyr Gibbs could play this week. Or
I believe they have a week 9 or 10 bye.
9.
So yeah, that I knew it was either one, and then he might be back next week. So that might be the timetable.
Yeah, Baltimore, Las Vegas, and a bye for the Lions. Pat Freiermuth and Deontay Johnson are expected back this week. So again, maybe you don't need a running back. Maybe Deontay Johnson is available on your waiver wire, and you want to pick him up. Minnesota linebacker, edge rusher, basically Marcus Davenport. He has a high ankle sprain. He's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. And Jamal Williams was limited in practice. Saints running back might be able to come back for this Thursday game against the Jaguars. Well, let's talk Fab here. Jack Talk Tie. Let's talk Fab. And Dave, how much Fab are we spending here on these guys?
I don't want to spend a lot, but I get that people are going to be desperate for a running back, and the opportunity to possibly have the starting running back for the 49ers is going to be appealing, and you're going to want to spend to get it. I think Mitchell would be in that 25 to 30% range. I think it's risky. We've talked about that already. Mason, a little bit below that. And Evans is probably going to go in about that same range too. So I would imagine if it's Mitchell or Evans, get ready for 30%. If it's Mason, probably closer to 20 to 25.
It's just so tough because, again, they get to practice on Thursday if we haven't heard anything. And McCaffrey is limited. Potentially in full. So I think if you're desperate, you spend just the hope of getting one of them, the 49ers guys, or if you just, like in your case, Adam, you're first on waivers. But if somebody needs a running back just because they need a running back, like you go get Zach Evans. And look, we are anticipating based on the reporting that Kyren Williams is only going to miss 1 week. But if it is longer than that with the Ronnie Rivers timetable, then there might be a bigger window here. But we could also see, we know how coaches are. Evans is a 6th round rookie. Royce Freeman's been in the league a little bit. He might be the guy that they end up leaning on. So
yeah,
we kind of got that with the Cardinal situation. Where undrafted rookie in DeMarcado and looked like he was the guy, and then Keontae Ingram comes back and Damian Williams is on their practice squad, and they went with the 2 veterans.
I have awesome news for you guys. Oh my gosh, you ready for this? This is going to be so exciting for you.
Christian McCaffrey's healthy and has no issues?
No.
Justin Jefferson is not really hurt?
Zach Evans is rostered in the IDP league, so I will not be adding Zach Evans. Oops. I will be adding Scott Fish. Scott, if you're watching, you're a son of a fish. And I'll be adding Jordan Mason instead. Let me ask you a question. I really, like, up until week 6, I've had a nice fantasy season. Nothing amazing, but pretty happy with my teams overall.
You sound like everybody.
Such a terrible week in week 6. I had some very close losses. I had some blowouts. I don't even know what the final tally is, but I had a terrible week. I am questioning my self-worth right now. Like, I don't know. Do you ever feel that way? When you have a bad week, you start. It's like are all my teams bad? Was it just a fraud for 5 weeks? Like, I am really down on myself right now, guys. I think I need to pick me up.
I had my first sub 500 week of the 25 leagues I play in, so I was pretty happy about the season so far. But first time that collectively they were below 500. But at this point, like when you play in that many leagues, you see which teams are going to be good and you see which teams are obviously going to stink. The ones that stink are the ones that frustrate me, or the ones that I focus on more, because, like, okay, I could turn around. Oh, it's 1-4. All right, it's 1-5. I could turn around. Like, it's just, the injuries are a huge part of this. But yeah, did we get that on the mailbag about somebody saying like they were out of it and they were going to be kind to their league mates and not make any more ad drops like that? I can never do that.
No, I just feel I feel like a loser, honestly, for the fantasy week I just had. We got to turn it around. Big week here. Big week. Good thing.
But it's just 1 week, and
I know, but I hate myself for it.
Yeah, I know. But if there's anything we learned, it's that injuries can turn things around real quick. And so I have a team that was in first place in a 14-team triple flex analyst league. It had Christian McCaffrey, David Montgomery, and Justin Fields. And it's a 14-team triple flex league. So there is no way anybody has any depth in this league. I am in deep trouble with my now 4-2 team in a league that I was hoping to take down because of injuries. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
that's the fun of fantasy. And it's not just you, Adam. There's got to be like 4 people in every league that suffered such humiliating losses, and it's making them angry and frustrated.
Yep.
And just got to go back after it, because what might look like a pretty mediocre team can end up being a pretty good team in a couple of weeks, just because it's healthy. I feel like it's the fantasy manager that drafted the healthiest players will win this season.
Dave actually helped me with a trade this. I think it was right before the season started. I have McCaffrey in our dynasty league, and he offered me Elijah Mitchell for a 3rd-round rookie pick. I think he gave me a 5th-round pick on top of it. There might have been something else with it.
I think that's exactly what it was. But I needed to do it because I had too many guys on my roster.
Yeah, and it was one of those things. Like, obviously, I was thrilled to get the handcuff, but I was lucky enough to get Jordan Mason in the league too. So,
nice.
yeah. But I remember just staring at Mitchell, like, I wonder if I can get him from Dave, and then Dave made me the offer at some point.
Yeah. And Dave, it turns out, fleeced me by giving me Calvin Ridley for Justin Jefferson. So thanks a lot. Thanks for nothing.
It's 1 week, and I think I lost in the podcast league, dropping me to 1-5 with Justin Jefferson. So the dream of making a rally with Jefferson and Chase on the same roster, it died a little bit.
It'll be fun
to see how it goes. We'll see how it goes.
I'll get us back on track. Sorry. How much fab for Josh Downs, Rashee Rice?
It's not going to take much. First off, Rice is rostered in a lot of leagues already.
Right.
So, the ones where he's still available, I don't know how many people are clamoring for him at this point, given the week, but he's certainly in the mix of one of the top wide receivers. I really struggled with which receiver to put first, because Wan'Dale, coming off the strong game that he has, is he just getting healthier? Was it Tyrod Taylor? He's clearly separating himself as the best receiver for the Giants, and we know what he was starting to look like last year before he went down. Downs, you mentioned it. He's 13.1 PPR points or more in the last 3 appearances with Gardner Minshew, so the connection there is strong. And even though he only had 5 for 21, it was still a 5-catch game. He now, I think it was the 2nd most targets that he's had all season. And you can kind of see the way this Colts team is starting to look, especially with some of the matchups. They're probably going to be throwing a lot late in games. So I think that'll benefit Downs. Rashee Rice, has just been, building towards something. I don't know. The problem with Rice is, like, is he going to crack through that ceiling? Are they going to play him more? Are they going to feature him more? That's what you're waiting for. But he's obviously tied to a great quarterback and great coach. And then you have these veteran guys of Curtis Samuel and even Kendrick Bourne, if you want to throw him in there, because 2 games this season, Kendrick Bourne has been absolutely studly, but can you bank on it from the Patriots and even from him? But again, so I don't know if you need to go crazy on the wide receivers from a fab perspective, but, really, like you said, Adam, if you don't need a running back, if you are just trying to build some depth, or if you're just looking to plug a flex spot in from Deontay Johnson, down, some of these guys are certainly going to be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, it's Deontay Johnson. If he were available, is Deontay Johnson the top wide receiver that you'd get?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's 72% rostered in CBS.
You make the case that he's the best player you could get.
Right. All right, let's take a break. We'll get the top 3 players at each position. You certainly might need a quarterback this week. You're going to Sam Howell. You're going to Derek Carr. We'll tell you who to look for on the waiver wire right after this.
This Saturday, it's back to back to back college football.
Into the end zone. What a throw, unreal.
It all starts at noon on CBS Sports Network.
Okay, 6 teams on a bye. We need some quarterbacks. Jamie, who are the top 3 quarterback priorities?
Well, I cheated a little bit because usually we go at 65%. So Sam Howell's at 66%. But, I mean, just given the landscape of quarterbacks, he's by far the best. It's not even close. Not the, layup matchup. I think that a lot of people think it is. The Giants have actually been pretty good against quarterbacks, but not exactly a team I think that you fear. But Howell's got top 10 upside for this week, again, with the teams on a bye, no Fields, and the way that he's performed, 21 or more fantasy points in 3 straight games in 4 of his last 5. So he's getting the job done. After him, I give Derek Carr a slight nod. The Jaguars have been pretty good against quarterbacks, pretty good in allowing fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. And the last 2 that have faced them, Josh Allen and Gardner Minshew, both over 300 yards. Carr coming off a 300-yard game. He's actually played his best fantasy. He's had his best fantasy performance the last 2 weeks. It's basically like 8.5 points. So it's not exactly like he's blowing the doors off things, but you're seeing him throw the ball down the field. It's kind of like what we said about Stafford until he got that second touchdown. If he gets that second touchdown, he's going to have a potentially big game, and it could happen this week. After him, I think you give a little bit of an edge to Baker Mayfield just based on the matchup. Not exactly, again, like Atlanta's been fantastic, but Baker's been pretty good outside of last week's game. He's been hovering around that 20-point range. This just shows you where we are with quarterbacks, that these are the guys that we're talking about here. So Howell's the prize. Carr's an okay consolation prize, and then maybe Baker. But once you get past that, you kind of alluded to this. It's a lot of the Superflex 2QB league options. They're not great, and they may not all start, but there are some options out there. Trod Taylor, Brian Hoyer. Obviously, Bagent's going to – is it Bagent or Bagent? How do you pronounce it?
Bagent.
He's
Secret
gonna
Bagent,
start,
man.
But, how good is he? And, some of these other, options, PJ Walker and whatever, it's just – it's players, it's bodies. They're not exactly great options, though.
Okay. We'll get to the running backs in a second. We'll talk about some other guys, but I just should know, I didn't mention this, that Daniel Jones is hoping to play this week. So if you are in a super flex league and you're looking at Tyrod Taylor, just be aware Daniel Jones is hoping to play this week. Also, one note on Carr, Jamie mentioned he's throwing the ball downfield. He really is. 4th highest air yards per pass attempt. And this is actually a bit of a vulnerability for the Jaguars. I think they've given up the 5th most completions of 30-plus air yards, something like the 8th most of 20-plus air yards. They are getting beat deep. I even went back and I watched some of the plays, and it's like, man, they struggle with the deep ball here. So that could be a nice matchup for Carr. It's kind of hard. I think it's hard. The touchdown, as Jamie already mentioned, he doesn't throw touchdowns. All right, Dave, the top 3 running backs are the 2 49ers guys and Rams running back Zach Evans, who's facing the Steelers. 49ers are facing the Vikings, and we like Mitchell ahead of Mason right now. And you would go Mitchell, Mason, Evans, or you would go Mitchell, Evans, Mason?
I think I'd go Mitchell, Evans, Mason, because listen, Mason has had better metrics this year than Mitchell. Mitchell really hasn't played great. And we talked about it already. Like I would completely expect the 49ers to use both backs randomly. And I think they're comfortable putting Mason near the goal line, even though he doesn't have a great track record of it. But Mitchell, just because he was the first name out of Kyle Shanahan's mouth, because he's had experience in this offense, he knows what he's doing. I think he's probably still just the better running back and the one that the 49ers will trust. So I like him, but I know he's not going to get a lot of the work, or all the work, I should say. He'll get plenty of work. Evans, I think, is going to get a decent amount of work too. And we talked about it with Kyren Williams earlier this year. I don't necessarily think that Zach Evans is this great talent. He had fumble issues in college. He had drops issues at Ole Miss. And now here he is getting an opportunity. And that's what matters the most in fantasy, is opportunity first, talent second. And Kyren Williams has actually proven to take advantage of the opportunity with the Rams. And he's looked better as the season's gone on. He looked great last week. It sucks that they don't have him. I would imagine that Evans would be the next best, but I have low expectations for him. But I would start him over Mason this week as of now, based on what we know. So Mitchell, Evans, Mason is my order.
Adam, let me give you the quote from Shanahan, because we've referenced it a couple times. So he was asked specifically, would you be okay with Jordan Mason being the guy if McCaffrey is out? He said, yeah, we'll see. Elijah's earned a ton with us over these years. I think Elijah, when he has been healthy, he has been as good of a back as there is. He's just had a hard time staying healthy, but I also can't take away anything from JP, and JP is in reference to Mason. I mean, every time JP's got his opportunities, you guys see how he's done. So both of those guys have done very well. Elijah came back and practiced late last week on Thursday, so he really only got 1 true day of practice in, and that's why JP got the first nod once Christian came out. But we've got 2 really good players there. So again, read into that what it is, why Mason played over Mitchell, what he thinks of Mitchell. But the last part of it, though, is that's the scary thing. We've got 2 really good backs there. And so, Mitchell has stepped in for the 49ers before, when Raheem Mostert got hurt, in Mitchell's rookie season. He was amazing that year. We all remember that. He was playing well before, not playing great, but playing okay before they traded for McCaffrey, but we know he's missing time. And so you just have to realize, like, if you're chasing Mason, you're hoping that Mitchell's either still not 100% or that it's going to be more of a timeshare. So just keep that in mind, why I think you go after Mitchell first, and then I don't think it's a bad idea, like Dave said, to go Evans second.
Okay, and the 49ers, good news is that they have the 2nd most running back carries in the NFL. They average 26.3 running back carries per game. So if they stay on that average, that could be 15 for one guy and 11 for another. If you get 15 carries from Elijah Mitchell, I would start that player. That'd be enticing. You're
And,
probably
and
not
there's
gonna get a lot of catches though.
there's one more wrinkle to this too, pro and con. If there's no Debo, you don't have to worry about him taking carries from the backfield. If there is Debo, then it could be really messy because they've used Samuel as running back essentially for 2 of the last 3 games, and the third one being the one he got hurt in. But he was 8 carries and 3 targets. And so if he's there, that could be a huge problem for both these guys in terms of what their top end potential could be.
If the following players are available, how do you sort it out? If Jeff Wilson or either of the Bears running backs, Rashawn Johnson or Deontay Foreman, are available, and they're all right around 75% rostered in CBS Sports leagues, which means for a lot of you, they are available in shallower leagues. Do you prioritize a Bears running back, Jeff Wilson, or one of these 49ers or Zach Evans?
I'd put Roschon first because he's got a shot to help you rest of season as well as in week number 7. So he would be the one I'd put over Mitchell. I'm not sure if Wilson's even going to play this week. It sounds like he's trending in the right direction, but I don't know if he's got staying power for the rest of the season. I'd put Mitchell ahead of him.
I think if you need somebody for this week, you got to look at Mitchell first, because especially if you're in some tough spots, or a tough spot, because we don't know if Roschon's walking back into the main role. And so shared role with a backup quarterback. I know the Raiders defense, we don't necessarily think very highly of them, but they have played for the most part better, I think, than a lot of people expected. And so is that situation better than the 49ers lead running back situation? Like if you tell me right now, Mitchell is starting for 1 week only, and Roschon may be the starter at some point in the next 3 games before Khalil Herbert's back, I would still take my chances with Mitchell. In terms of Wilson, I don't think you could trust. I think Dave's right. But again, they just lost Christopher Brooks, or we're expected not to have Chris Brooks for this week. If there is a chance for Wilson to come back, they're down now to just 2 healthy bodies at that position. So I would assume that if he's ready to go, he's going to play. Then you look at Wilson as maybe for the next 3 weeks could have some staying power, similar to Roschon Johnson. So those 2 I think are very similar. But I think if you get 1 game of Elijah Mitchell, even if that's all you get, you're going all in on him.
Okay, so how about the top 3 wide receiver priorities? Dave, I'll throw it to you this time.
If Rashee Rice is out there and you're willing to be patient at the midpoint of the fantasy season, I would take him first. I'll take Josh Downs second. He has a higher target share than Curtis Samuel. Wan'Dale Robinson will be third. I'll take him ahead of Curtis Samuel. You guys are right. Curtis Samuel's shown us this before, and then he's faded. But he does have 14 or more PPR points in 3 straight games, a touchdown in each of his past 2. I think he's roster worthy. I don't know if he's necessarily start worthy, whereas I think there's a little bit more upside for the younger wide receivers in Downs and Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yeah, the thing with Samuel, he actually has a touchdown in 3 straight, 2 receiving and 1 rushing. But 2 of those 3 games where he's been productive, at least 7 targets, at least 6 catches. So you are seeing Sam Howell lean on him, and he's clearly outplayed Jahan Dotson. And from a consistency standpoint, he's been their best receiver. And so you could argue he's been their best player, with what he's done for the last 3 weeks. Like, he's been more consistent than the running backs. He's been more consistent than McLaurin. And so maybe this is something with Eric Bieniemy as a new play caller that you could buy into and say, okay, something is different, because we thought Dotson was going to be a breakout candidate. He's not. And McLaurin just hasn't been able to be productive week in, week out. So the nice thing about Samuel is it's almost like his namesake. He's getting carries, like Deebo Samuel, and he's producing in the passing game. A lot of it is short area targets. Now, the problem with him, I think, for me at least, is you get a game like last week where it's 4 for 42, I think it was, and the touchdown goes away. And then what are you looking at? So you just have to understand that that's the kind of player he is. Like, I don't think he's going to be consistently 6 for 50 every week. But if he is, you're going to be pretty happy about that in PPR.
Yeah, by the way, if you have Terry McLaurin, I think you're going to want to start him this week. He just destroys the Giants. So just throwing that out there in this, fairly intriguing NFC East matchup from a fantasy standpoint, at least for the Commanders. I think pretty intriguing game. All right, tight ends. Jamie, who are the top 3 tight ends?
I struggle with this one a little bit too. I go back to just what the preseason value was that I had on Pat Freiermuth. I thought he was going to be a breakout candidate, and so I'm going to go back to him since he's coming back and available. So he's first. But the 2 rookies are very interesting. Luke Musgrave, 2 of his last 3 games, at least 6 catches. The one where he didn't have, he left with a concussion against Detroit. And so is he building towards something now that he's healthy and becoming, a reliable option for Jordan Love. And then Michael Mayer, I'll go back to the conversation we had with Tom Spencer, who joins us every Sunday. And you alluded to this, Adam, as well. Like the previous game, I think it was the Packers game, your favorite football game ever.
Great game.
That the broadcast said how much they wanted to get Michael Mayer involved. I think he had 3 targets or 3 catches in the game, if I'm not mistaken, one of the 2. But it was his most production to that point in the season.
39 on 3 targets.
And then you come out with this game with 5 catches on 6 targets against New England for 75 yards. And so is he now becoming a little bit more part of this offense to a level where you might be able to trust him? And so, again, he's more of a long-term play. I think you look at Freiermuth and Musgrave as potential starters for this week, at least I do, especially Musgrave with the matchup that he has against the Broncos. So both these guys are in play. And look, even the matchup for the Rams, they're 29th against opposing tight ends. So they've been very forgiving to the position as well. So both these guys have an opportunity, but I think all 3 of them are worth, certainly picking up, especially if you've been playing the tight end roulette game.
Yeah, it is interesting that all 3 of these guys have, on paper, great matchups. I'll just go over it again. Freiermuth, the Rams are 29th against tight ends. Musgrave, the Broncos are 32nd. And Mayer, the Bears are 25th. And then his next game against Detroit, they're 28th against tight ends, which is a little weird. They haven't given up any big games to individual tight ends, but they collectively are bad against tight ends. So those 3 guys. Musgrave, though, just want to bring this up. He hasn't really had a game with Watson and Aaron Jones. None of them have really, where everyone's been healthy.
Sure.
So they're coming out of their bye. We'll see what the target distribution is there.
And I will say this, just for the sneaky fantasy manager, if you could still play Taysom Hill at quarterback. Last week, first time we saw him really used as a traditional tight end. Not necessarily that benefits him as the quarterback production, but still just another option that you might be able to use in Superflex.
He had career highs in routes and targets, and I believe it's the most snaps he's played when he didn't start at quarterback for the Saints. Short range guy. He ran a lot of short routes, so like an outlet receiver. But I mean, I don't know if it's going to last. I don't know if that's just because they were playing a heavy zone defense.
Well, Juwan Johnson's out, so he's been out for the last
right.
game.
But Juwan Johnson's been out for a couple of weeks, and this is the first time we've seen Hill used like this.
Sure.
I don't know if it's going to last. I'd much rather go after one of these young tight ends than him.
Yeah. Who are you dropping? Are you okay dropping Ferguson going into his bye?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think he's a must-drop player, but, he hasn't exactly stepped forward to the level that I think we would have liked to see. And with a bye week, sure. If you need to just go, swap tight end for tight end, then sure.
You're going to hang on to Logan Thomas. You're going to hang on to Cole Kmet.
Kmet for sure.
Yes.
Thomas is in the same range as Ferguson.
I mean, you say Kmet for sure, but Fields could be out for a while. I mean, we don't even know.
Yeah, I want to see a full game with different quarterbacks to see.
Yeah. All right. Jamie, give us the DSTs and the kickers, and then Dave can give us IDP.
Cleveland's playing Cleveland, right?
Cleveland is playing, yeah. It's no joke.
Cleveland is playing the Colts, so we saw Gardner Minshew look like he could have had 6 interceptions in that game. So the Browns would be they're my number 1 DST this week. The Seahawks against the Cardinals, their offense is starting to fall apart a little bit, and then the Commanders against the Giants, and then the Rams against the Steelers. Kickers would be Jason Myers against Cardinals, Brett Maher against the Steelers, Cameron Dicker against the Chiefs, and Blake Groupie, as we have now come to find out. I was disappointed with him last week, but I think he'll bounce back at home.
All right. Dave, IDP.
Defensive lineman Justin Matabuke has been playing well. We're looking for a D lineman that can get us maybe 5 tackles per game. He's out there in 90% of leagues. We've talked about DJ Wanham before with Minnesota. He continues to put up decent numbers, but I think the best one is Carl Granderson, who's been getting good tackle numbers and adding some sacks. He has at least 1 sack in 4 of 6 games this year. Zach Allen coming on for Denver. Linebacker Devin Lloyd, first game back, 12 fantasy points in leagues where tackles count. Jelani Tavai is another good linebacker. I'm a little hesitant on Micah McFadden, kind of a wait-and-see linebacker. But if you're in a dynasty league, see if he's available. He could end up being pretty good. I think the defensive backs are where it's at, though. Justin Reed has some huge games his last 2 weeks. Josh Metellus in Minnesota has played well. And then a couple of corners, Cam Taylor-Britt and Juju Brents in Indianapolis are 2 guys that have put up some pretty good numbers the last couple of weeks. There's a lot out there. It's nice.
All right. The way you said Carl Granderson was what you were like, Carl Granderson. I didn't know if you were doing a thing there. You weren't doing a thing, were you?
Of course not. Why would I?
You could have said Carl Good to see you. Okay, we just had a trade in the podcast league, guys. Did you see it?
No.
Let's grade it. It was a pretty spicy one. If I could find it, though. It was, ready? It's spicy. I'm warning you. I hope you like spicy food. Come on, podcast league email. Yes, here we go. Okay, it was Christian Watson and Bijan Robinson
Ooh, okay.
for Jacoby Myers and Tony Pollard.
It's pretty even.
Yeah. I
Pretty
might
spicy.
take the Pollard Myers side right now.
I would too.
Tell you what song I heard on the radio yesterday. I heard that song. I don't think is it called Shallow or In the Shallow? You know, the one from A Star Is Born, the Lady Gaga song. Bradley Cooper. Great song. Love that song. Let's talk about the shallow leagues. Who's available in the shallow la leagues? So you got like Jordan Love. You got those Bears running backs, Jeff Wilson that I talked about. Deontay Johnson. Sorry for stealing your thunder, Jamie. Who's available in the shallow leagues? Dave, you can do the deep leagues after.
I mean, again, Jordan Love really the only quarterback that I saw in the range that we typically talk about. And from what I do for this, if anybody is curious, anybody that's 66% generally, we'll say 67% to about 79%. So you might be able to find them in 10-team leagues. But you mentioned the quarterback in Jordan Love. The running backs are very interesting because of some of the options. Now, I would carry Tajay Spears through his bye week. As we've seen, he's been productive and he's a potential lottery ticket. We still don't know that Aaron Jones is coming back 100%, but A.J. Dillon coming off his best game in week 5. I think you want to pick him up if he was dropped. Roshan Johnson and Deontay Foreman both qualify because one of them will be the one will hopefully be a potential fantasy starter for you. And then Jeff Wilson still available in 25% of leagues. And another guy to carry through his bye week is Chuba Hubbard. The receivers, a little disappointing from Josh Palmer, although he did have a touchdown called back early in the game. So that might have changed how you feel about him, but he's available. Receiver, Deontay Johnson, you mentioned him as well. In terms of guys that we've already talked about. KJ Osborne still at 76%. I know he didn't have a huge game, but still we only saw Kirk Cousins throw 31 times. That's kind of low for him. And then at tight end, we have, excuse me as I scroll down here. Tight end, you should absolutely 1000% pick up Dalton Schultz if he's still available. Carry him through his bye week. He could be a number 1 tight end rest of season based on what he's done the last 3 weeks. The last 2 have been extremely encouraging, especially what he was able to do against the Saints because that defense is great against tight ends.
And Dave, who's in the deep leagues? Who's in the deep leagues now?
I don't even get that reference.
My ears are in the
Oh,
deep.
I get it. The shallow song.
Yeah, who's rolling in the deep, Dave?
Jordan Mason and Zach Evans are available in over 90% of leagues, and we've already talked about them. They're going to get grabbed up like crazy once they're gone. Look, I can't believe he's a thing again, but he's a thing again. Latavius Murray is 84% available and is kind of the 1B running back in Buffalo.
Did you see the report yesterday?
Which is it?
That Leonard Fournette is going to visit the Bills?
Yeah, I saw that, but I wonder if that's just because of what happened to Damian Harris.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it could be a problem for both those guys.
It could be. I listen, I'm not excited to add Latavius Murray, but you might be desperate and you might miss out on Mason and Evans. He would be up there. Keontae Ingram, if you like 5 or 6 fantasy points, he'll be there. And then Craig Reynolds.
No, we shouldn't just poo-poo that, you know. I mean, Ingram.
Sure, because that's what Latavius Murray might get you on a good week.
Murray, I mean, really?
I think I'd rather have Ingram because we know that Connor's going to be gone 3 more weeks.
Right.
And Murray could have some company with Fournette coming, and I don't know. I have a tough time trusting
Harris might not be out that long. I didn't see a timeline, but it's a neck injury. He might miss 1 or 2 games.
If they're working out Leonard Fournette, I can't expect Harris to be back. And listen, it's not like Harris was taking so much work away from the other running backs in Buffalo, and it's running backs in Buffalo. I think we've been fooled you by all the hype around James Cook at this point. Craig Reynolds is out there in 94% of leagues too. You could spend a few bucks a fab and carry him for a few days, and then if Jahmyr Gibbs is ready to go like we think he is, then
we Jamie basically have not talked at all about Craig Reynolds. And if he is the starter this week, how would you feel about Craig Reynolds?
I would put him behind both Mitchell and Evans as potential starters for this week, or 49ers running back and Evans as potential starters for this week. He would be a flex. You know, I mean, the fact that he would get all of those opportunities and the majority of those opportunities is very encouraging. They have Divino Zigbo as their second guy now because Zonovan Knight is out. So who knows how much they'll lean on him. And clearly you would expect a lot of passing from Jared Goff. He didn't have a great stat line against the Bucs when he came on. 10 carries, I believe it was 25 yards, if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't pretty. So, and we kind of got fooled by him before, but given the week, even with the matchup, he's at least a flex.
Okay, Dave, I Googled songs with the word deep in the title. So maybe I can practice for next week, but we have How Deep Is Your Love? How deep is your love? I could do like a high-pitched Peachy's voice. I could do In Too Deep, either by Sum 41 or by Phil Collins. Those seem like the best.
Can we just talk about some deep wide receivers now?
We didn't do that yet?
No.
Go ahead.
Wan'Dale Robinson, 87% available. That would be the first guy that I would target. You tell me, Adam. Jalen Hyatt played 55 snaps last week. Yeah. Second most among Giants wide receivers. Could he become a thing?
Honestly, no. I just don't think so because I just don't. I can't trust anyone in the Giants offense. I mean, it's great that he's on the field, but no, I don't think so. I'm not really interested in picking up Jalen Hyatt.
Okay. I do like the fact that they sort of pared down their receiving core a little bit.
Yeah,
they did.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great. We want to see Wan'Dale and Hyatt on the field for fantasy purposes, but if they throw for 200 yards in a game, you're thankful to the gods for that. So it's just not. There's just not enough there.
Okay. I mean, Darius Slayton just led them in receiving yards against Buffalo. He's 96% available. I'm not excited about any of these guys other than Robinson, but I was asking you just because. Rashid Shaheed, 62% available. He's a boomer bust play. That's what we're hoping Hyatt might be someday. And we didn't talk about Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's already rostered in a bunch of leagues, but that's another guy that if I can afford to be patient, I'd go back to him and stash him.
Okay. All right. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the thrilling, exhilarating Monday Night Football game and who to drop and more waiver wire names to know. We haven't talked about Kareem Hunt. That's someone I want to discuss as well. And we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
The best bull riders come together.
Only get one life, so enjoy the ride.
To crown a Team Series champion.
Just live your life, one day at a time.
On CBS Sports Network.
And we welcome you back, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today. All right, let's talk about the Cowboys 20 and the Chargers 17. And Jamie, what are your major fantasy takeaways from this game?
I thought Dak looked much better. Certainly helped that Brandon Cooks finally made some plays. And it was interesting because, I like to I start the waiver wire column on Monday. And I had Brandon Cooks as one of the drop candidates because he's been hovering in that 50-60% range. So I usually try to keep guys that are 50% rostered or higher in that guys that I look at to drop. And I'm like, I can't tell people to drop him. Just kind of leave him in that limbo phase because he looked much better, and the fact that once he caught the touchdown, it felt like Dak was looking for him a little bit more. Michael Gallup had every target in the world and didn't do much with it at all. And so it might be time to move on from him if you were counting on him.
Would you hold Cooks through his bye?
I don't know if you have to necessarily worry about holding Cooks through his bye because I don't know how many people will be clamoring for him. But if you don't have to drop him, don't drop him. I don't think you have to run out and add him either. But, he's kind of one of those, like we talked about, Jake Ferguson, Logan Thomas, just kind of these limbo guys. If you have to drop him to make a roster move, drop him. If you can hold him just to see what happens, hold him because he might have been dealing with that knee injury and may finally be close to 100%. But yeah, I thought Dak looked better. It's very frustrating to see Tony Pollard make some great plays and just not have the stat lines that we're looking for. So I hope better days are ahead. And then Eckler, who knows how much of it was a shake the rest of the game.
And jump in there on Pollard. I think this is worth bringing up. I think it was Schneier when we talked about it recently that said maybe he's just not all the way back because he had the fractured leg or ankle and he had the offseason surgery. I am starting to agree with that. I think it was Dan who said that. He really just doesn't look special to me. I'm sorry. I don't, putting on my scout glasses. I'm sorry, I don't want to do that, but I've seen enough Tony Pollard this year, and I'm not seeing the burst. In fact, really lucky to spin out of that tackle, right, and take off for that 60-ish yard. Yeah, it was a 60-yard catch, but I was surprised not that he got chased down by Asante Samuel Jr., but that it wasn't even close. Asante Samuel Jr. was like Tyreek Hill or like DK Metcalf running down whoever that was that one time. I am not seeing.
Baker, right?
Yeah, whatever it was. I'm sorry, but whatever it was, I'm not seeing that burst from Tony Pollard. He looks extremely ordinary to me and doesn't look like the same running back. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I am starting to think maybe, I believe it was Dan, was right, and he's just not the same guy coming off the ankle. It's a concern for me.
I think his avoided tackle rate is way down too.
Right, all those metrics are suggested.
The thing that a little bit alarming to me too, and it kind of speaks to what they used him last year, is he's not producing at the goal line at all. Like, and that was Zeke's role, for a reason, potentially.
He was open, by the way, and I would have won a freaking fantasy league if Dak didn't miss him so badly on that route. Yeah. It could have been a huge game, but you got lucky because that was a 60-yard catch. If not for that, that's a 50 total yard game on 21 touches. And so I just saw that trade, the Bijan and Watson for Pollard and whoever. I don't know. I think I said this on yesterday's show. Buying low on a player on a buy to a manager that really needs to win this week is an amazing idea. It's the best time to go get that player. Do I want to do that with Tony Pollard, though? Do you guys want to get Tony Pollard?
It always comes down to price. Yeah, I'm not going to overpay for him. But if
I know that.
I also still view him as a top 12 running back rest of season, partially because who else is the top 12 running back at this point?
Well, it's also he's played several games without his offensive line at full strength, so some of the poor performances have been a byproduct of what we view as a strength for him is playing behind that line. He's had a lot of situations where there's been turnovers by his quarterback. His defense has had scoring plays that's taken the offense off the field in the early part of the season. So the overall numbers are not great. But yes, you're right, Adam. He does not look like the same player. And we go back to the conversations we've had about him last year with the coaching staff and what they said, that maybe he's just not an every down guy and needs to be used more in spurts to keep himself fresh and have that burst.
And yet he played 82% of the snaps. He's dominating on 3rd and 4th downs. He's dominating inside the 10. I wonder if the week off will help him, because if he's not right, now he's got a week to get better. And the schedule ahead isn't exactly great for him, but I'm hoping that the second half of the season does not mirror the first half.
I can't help but notice how inept the Chargers passing game has looked in 2 games since Mike Williams got hurt. And I wonder how you guys feel about that.
I don't know if that's all because of Mike Williams. I was impressed by the Cowboys defense.
Yes.
The fact that they were able to they sped up Justin Herbert. He was uncomfortable. And I think that's what led to so many errant throws and missed open targets downfield. And that line isn't the strength that I had hoped that it would be. And I also think Keenan Allen is just going to.
There it is.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Cowboys only had 1 sack, but they had the second highest pressure rate in the NFL in week 6. They pressured Justin Herbert on 48% of his dropbacks. Jamie, just we'll wrap it up with this. We got to get back to the waiver wire. Any long-term concerns about Justin Herbert or Austin Eckler?
None. Buy low on Eckler if somebody's frustrated.
Okay. Let's go to the waiver wire here, and we'll also talk about players to drop. But if Jordan Love and or Russell Wilson in the same matchup were available, oh no, it's not the same matchup. Sorry.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is. Okay, I have the wrong schedule for Jordan Love. I thought he was facing Denver this week.
Look who else has a schedule issue.
Who's facing the Vikings this week? Why do I have
49ers?
Why do I have Jordan Love? Okay, that's weird. Yeah, who would you rather have, Jordan Love or Russell Wilson? 2 potentially, you could say, struggling quarterbacks.
Love.
Love. Yeah.
Love or Howell?
Howell.
I've got Howell higher.
What would your interest level in Daniel Jones be if he plays this week?
Very, very minimal.
Yeah.
And all right, so after Howell, Jordan Love or Derek Carr?
Howell, Love, Carr.
That's how I have it.
Joni, Love, Chachi.
Jody Love Chachi. And then you've got Baker Mayfield against Atlanta. Any thought on Desmond Ridder?
Yes.
He's on the road.
I don't have him as a top 12, but you might be desperate and you might not be able to get your cloppies on Howell. And if you're not if you're not into Carr, then look, he's been throwing a ton lately. The turnovers have been ugly, but he's gotten some decent numbers. And the matchup says that only 2 quarterbacks have done well against who's he playing? Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Right. So, he's playing Tampa Bay. Cousins had a monster game. He just turned the ball over 3 times himself. So, and I think it's going to be hard for them to run on Tampa Bay. So I'm okay with Ridder, but he's not a top 12 guy, even in a week with 6 teams on bye.
Yeah, and Jamie mentioned he's got these crazy home road splits, so he's on the road this week. That's the bad side of the split.
Although that didn't matter last week. He wasn't amazing for fantasy last week.
Yeah, no, Ridder was. Well, he scored 20 points.
That's
okay. That ended up being amazing for week 6. That's
it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was week 6 amazing, but not amazing.
Week 6 amazing is not. Yeah. Okay, running backs. You've got, if shallower leagues, you can look at the Dolphins guys. You can look at, you can look at the Bears guys, and you can look at Jeff Wilson, AJ Dillon, Tajay Spears is available. He's on a bye. It's a long-term play. Zach Charbonnet, same thing. We've talked so much now about the 49ers running backs, and we're ranking it Mitchell 1, and then Dave is going Evans 2, Jordan Mason 3. We actually have a YouTube poll. Is it done though? Did I miss the poll? No. Which running back are you targeting first on the waiver wire? Mitchell has 41% of the vote, Evans 34%, Jordan Mason 25%. So I think that's kind of how people are going to lean here. And then you've got Craig Reynolds and Kareem Hunt, I think worth talking about. He had 17 touches. They faced the Colts this week. Jamie, how do you feel about Kareem Hunt?
I was surprised how much work they gave him coming off the bye week, and that's something, he might have gotten his legs under him a little bit after, not having any training camp. So Jerome Ford still outplayed him from a, rushing standpoint. He had a better yards per carry. He looked better than Hunt, and he was the guy they were using at the end of the game. Had some amazing runs when they were trying to hold the lead there at the end. But Hunt, I thought, was again heavily involved in the passing game. Touchdown run was great. So I don't think he's a bad option if you're desperate this week to play as a flex. I wouldn't consider him anything more than that.
He played 37% of the snaps. He had a nice touchdown run. I still think Ford's the main guy there. I don't think that's saying anything that's going to light the world on fire.
Keontae Ingram facing Seattle. Seattle, so far, they have arguably the best run defense, one of the best. They are giving up touchdowns, though, and they give up passing game production to running backs. That's not really Arizona's thing. But Keontae Ingram, 30% rostered. If you need a starting running back, he had 12 touches. Damian Williams had 9. That was really unfortunate for Keontae Ingram.
And just played the most snaps for them.
No, it did not. DeMarcado.
He played the most snaps for them.
He did. 45% of the snaps, 16 of 20 on 3rd and 4th downs.
Yeah, Dobbs doesn't throw to his running backs. Just
no,
doesn't do it.
Adam.
Jamie.
I got to go. Bye.
Oh, all right. Jamie does have to go. Sorry about that. Justice Hill did not really follow up his good game with another good one, although he does have 7 catches in his last 2 games, Dave, Justice Hill. So, hooray. Savon Ahmed had a late touchdown. What about Devin Singletary? Any interest in carrying him through the bye? 24% rostered.
I would put him in the same boat as Brandon Cooks, which is you don't have to do it, but try to, because he ended up being the best running back for the Texans in terms of usage. And that was kind of disappointing to see. 52% of the snaps. Pierce had a slight edge when they got inside the 10. I'm reluctant to say that Devin Singletary is going to become a thing for Houston. My guess is that he did help make himself a part of a timeshare, and that these two are going to end up splitting reps somehow coming out of their bye.
Can I ask you, I forgot to ask about Kenny Pickett. Now with Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth back facing
I can't have much confidence in him as a starting quarterback in a 1 QB league. And I think there's other quarterbacks that I'd rather speculate on.
Would you rather have Baker Mayfield or Kenny Pickett?
I think I'd rather have Mayfield.
Okay. All right, wide receivers, the shallow league guys are KJ Osborne, Josh Palmer, Deontay Johnson. How do you rank them?
Deontay, I'll take Palmer over Osborne. Jameson Williams could be in that group too.
And then the Rashee Rice, Josh Downs, Wan'Dale Robinson are the top 3 guys to get. in some order. That's Dave's order. Jamie had it Downs, Wandale, Rashee Rice, Curtis Samuel is out there too. I mentioned this yesterday. Kendrick Bourne has now played 90% or more of the snaps in 2 straight games, and he had 1 good game and 1 stinker there. But weeks 2 through 4, he was kind of like in the 50 to 60% range of the snaps, Kendrick Bourne. So maybe he is just going to be their guy that plays almost every snap.
They've tried to get away from him as being their guy, but I actually think he might be the one that has the best connection with Mac Jones. This has been more than just a 1-year thing. Last year, it was the same thing. But if he's got the best connection with Mac Jones, he's got to play more. You can't expect games like what we had in week 6 from him.
And Rashid Shaheed, it's like a good matchup maybe for Rashid Shaheed because the Jaguars struggle against the deep ball, but you're really you're hoping for him to haul in a 40-yard touchdown or something.
That's basically what it is. Boom bust, low end wide receiver 3.
JSN is a guy who's 56% rostered and played his highest snap share, but again, I thought I'd look it up yesterday and I didn't. I'm sorry, but I do wonder how much he played while DK Metcalf was out for a decent.
I'm sure he played a lot. Yeah.
And if that contributed to JSN's season high in snap share rate. At tight end, you've got Dalton Schultz in shallow leagues. And yeah, I mean, I know Jamie spoke very highly of Dalton Schultz. Again, I'll point out it has really coincided with the Tank Dell absence. I'm not necessarily doubting Schultz's presence, but you just have to be aware of that. And Dell will be back after the bye. Freiermuth, Musgrave, Mayer. That's how Jamie ranked them to pick up for this week. How would you rank Freiermuth, Musgrave, Mayer?
I would rank the Mayer, Musgrave, Freiermuth, but Jonnu Smith should be in there too. Isn't he available in a ton of leagues?
Oh yeah.
I'd put him at the top of the list. It's been 3 straight weeks now where he's been involved in the Atlanta offense. Short area target, caught a touchdown last week. We'll see if he can keep it up.
Last week,
but I do like Mayer best for what Jamie said. It's not only the fact that he's seen his target share get pumped up the last 2 weeks. His schedule's good for the rest of the season.
Except to me, he's just hopefully Devontae Adams is healthy, but I think Michael Mayer is the number 3 option on a team that probably has Brian Hoyer at quarterback this week. But
yeah, it sounds gross. But Luke Musgrave might be the number 4 option.
Right.
And Freiermuth is probably no better than the number 3 option on his team and has been.
You're right.
He's had a hard time getting targets. What about Dalton Kincaid as a stash guy?
Yeah. Stash. That's it. I mean, I can't really. He's done nothing.
Yeah, he really.
More though.
Yeah. I had much higher expectations for how Buffalo would use him and James Cook, and so far it's been not good.
And Taysom Hill was used as a tight end, a real tight end for the first time in his career, basically, and he came through with 7 catches for 49 yards on 8 targets.
I'd argue he was used more as like a slot receiver.
Well,
tight end.
Okay, that's what I meant, though. A receiver.
Yes,
I'll give you one more name just to keep an eye on. Trey McBride, 4 catches for 62 yards on 5 targets. They increased his snaps big time. I would love to see the Cardinals, transition to Trey McBride, maybe get a little bit of a youth movement here. It's kind of like Michael Mayer last week. Maybe he can back it up. DSTs, the Browns, the Seahawks, the Commanders, and the Rams. Kickers, Jason Myers, Brett Maher, Cameron Dicker, and Blake Groupie. And I want to look at the most dropped players here, Dave. If you give me 1 second here, I'm going to bring up.
I'll give you one more DST.
Yeah.
The Raiders are taking on Chicago with a beat-up offensive line and Tyson Bagent, an undrafted rookie, starting. Chicago's allowed at least 18 fantasy points to 5 of the first 6 DSTs it's faced. I'm gonna put the Raiders on my list. I've got them behind Seattle, but Cleveland, Seattle, and Las Vegas would be my top 3 DSTs.
All right, here
and they've scored at least 14 points in each of their past 2 games. Though that's in leagues that give points for limited yardage.
Drop-o-meter. Amari DeMarcado, 0 to 10.
8.
Dak Prescott.
3. You can do it if you have to, but you shouldn't.
Tank Dell.
Same as Dak. 3.
Jahan Dotson.
8. And I hate it. But it is what it is in Washington.
Jerick McKinnon.
7.
How about Quentin Johnston?
6. There were a couple of plays last night where he got open and Herbert just didn't see him.
Tutu Atwell.
4.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he and Higbee and Kyren Williams really seem to be the big victims of Cooper Kupp's return as far as targets go.
That is it for our show. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your time. We'll talk to you tomorrow. No, Dave does not have a ponytail. Does Dave have a ponytail?
Oh, you want to see my ponytail? Hold on, let me.
There it is. That is beautiful. Dave does not have a ponytail, but Dave will be on the show tomorrow to talk trade. We'll help you make some trades, buy low and sell high. We'll be back tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today.